Relations between Europe and Turkey have had a lot of ups and downs over the years. It really wasn't that many years ago that Turkey, once on a path to EU membership, was seen as a source of huge frustration by its European and NATO neighbours. Its bitter feuding with Greece, increasing authoritarian governance, holding up of Swedish and Finnish NATO bids, and refusal to join Western sanctions on Russia are just a handful of issues. However, Europe and Turkey are now eyeing a strategic reset, with European leaders seeing Turkey as an essential energy, economic and defence partner, while trying to turn a blind eye to the health of Turkey's democracy. So, in this video, we're going to explain Europe's turn towards Turkey, what it looks like in practice, and what the remaining hurdles are. Despite its sometimes overwhelming presence, there are still a handful of EU countries not using the euro. Why is this? And what's going on with the euro's missing members? That's just one of 80 pages in the magazine, because there's more in too long than you'd expect. Purchase your copy by clicking the link in the description. In just the past few years, the EU, and Europe more broadly, has rapidly had to rethink how it interacts with the world. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine prompted Europe to try and wean itself off Russian fossil fuels and reinvest in its defence. This focus on rearmament only became more urgent when Donald Trump returned to the White House and ruptured the transatlantic relationship, leaving European nations facing a world in which they could no longer rely on their long-time security guarantor, the US. Trump's return has also prompted Europe to broaden and diversify its economic and trade relationships. In these aforementioned spheres, Turkey has a lot to offer. Its straddling of Europe and Asia means it's well placed to connect Europe with alternative suppliers of oil and gas in the Caucasus and Central Asia, thereby bypassing Russia. Turkey, owing to its location, is also a key defender of NATO's southeastern flank, and it controls maritime access to the Black Sea. But it's probably Turkey's defence industrial base that's most appealing to Europe. Turkey has NATO's second largest military after the United States, and an impressive catalogue of military capabilities and domestic production, from missiles to artillery shells to drones. Turkey's world-leading drone industry is best represented by Baykar, whose Bayraktar TB2 drone has been combat-proven around the world, in Ukraine, in the Middle East, and in Africa. Because of the size of its military, European leaders see Turkey's involvement in any post-peace deal peacekeeping deployment in Ukraine as essential. Were the EU to lead a peacekeeping mission in Lebanon after the UN mission expires this year, Turkish support could similarly play an important role. Turkey's influence and diplomatic clout has proven useful to the West already. Turkey was instrumental in mediating the Black Sea grain deal in 2022, helped stabilise post-Assad Syria, and was involved in Gaza ceasefire negotiations. So, what has Europe's increased engagement with Turkey actually looked like? Well, there's a growing list of defence and security deals. Last year, Baykar struck a deal with Italian aerospace firm Leonardo for a joint 50-50 venture focused on unmanned technologies. Similarly, French defence company Safran also recently signed a strategic partnership with Baykar. Turkey has also exported advanced systems to the likes of Romania and Poland. Meanwhile, Turkish Aerospace is partnering with Airbus to develop a new combat training system for the Spanish Air Force. And in April this year, Turkey signed a strategic partnership framework with the UK, aimed at increasing cooperation and coordination within NATO, and enhancing defence capability and industry cooperation. In the year to June, Turkey's defence and aviation exports surpassed $11 billion for the first time, with 57% of that being exports to NATO allies. At the political level too, there's been a move towards greater Europe-Turkey cooperation. Ahead of this week's NATO summit held in the Turkish capital Ankara, 3 top EU officials, including Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas, met with Turkish President Erdogan in what was dubbed a jumbo meeting. In a sign of the EU's now positive attitude towards Turkey, Kallas said Turkey is a key partner on security, migration and energy, as well as an EU candidate country, adding that she spoke with Erdogan about further strengthening EU-Turkey relations and the importance of good neighbourly relations. In a sign of these warming relations, earlier this year the European Investment Bank resumed financing Turkish projects after a 7-year break, having effectively cut Turkey off from funding in 2019 amid a dispute over oil and gas drilling near Cyprus. But there is, of course, a massive elephant in the room. The cost of this reinvigorated relationship with Turkey is Europe's relative silence on Erdogan's political crackdown. His consolidation of power has been a long-running project, but things have really escalated in the past couple of years in an attempt to suppress the newly reinvigorated opposition CHP, which won the popular vote in the 2024 Turkish local elections, the first time since 2001 that Erdogan's AKP did not come first. The popular mayor of Istanbul and the CHP's candidate for president, Ekrem İmamoğlu, who is seen as Erdogan's main rival, is in jail facing various corruption charges. Huge numbers of other opposition figures, particularly at the municipal and local level, have also been arrested, and the CHP's leader, Özgür Özel, was removed from post by a court earlier this year, a move seen as an attempt to further neutralise the opposition party. In the run-up to this NATO summit, Turkish authorities widened their crackdown on public life, arresting several journalists, a prominent comedian, and more than 100 anti-NATO protesters. Several Turkish media outlets were also denied accreditation by NATO to attend and cover the summit. Notwithstanding a bit of a gaffe by Ursula von der Leyen recently, in which she rhetorically placed Turkey alongside China and Russia, Western capitals and the EU have offered little more than platitudes in response to Erdogan's crackdown, signalling that, at least in terms of defence and energy, Turkey's strategic value outweighs Europe's concern about the health of Turkey's democracy. This is a far cry from 2021, when 10 Western ambassadors were on the brink of being expelled from Turkey after they called for the release of a jailed philanthropist Osman Kavala. Or just compare this year's NATO summit, hosted by Turkey, to 2018. Erdogan wanted to host that year's summit, but was blocked by several European countries amid a downturn in ties relating to his political crackdown. Obviously, Erdogan will relish the opportunity to continue his crackdown with little criticism, and will welcome greater cooperation in defence, energy, and so on. However, his list of wants from Europe goes further. He wants access to the EU's €150 billion defence loan scheme. Turkey has long wanted to modernise the 1995 Turkey-EU customs union. EU visa liberalisation for Turks is another goal, and ultimately he'd like to see progress on EU accession, which has effectively been frozen since the mid-2010s. But while Europe is clearly learning to live with Erdogan's Turkey, embracing cooperation in certain areas and refraining from too much criticism, there are still major hurdles towards a further rapprochement. Chief among these are Greece and Turkey's competing maritime claims, and Cyprus still split between a Turkish Cypriot North and Greek Cypriot South, with Greece and Cyprus leveraging their EU membership to hinder closer ties with Turkey. This is an incredibly nuanced story though, with plenty of outlets reporting online, and even now we can see that there were 204 sources reporting on it. But how can we be sure that what we're reading isn't hugely biased? Well, that's a problem we face when making these videos too, and luckily that's where this week's sponsor, Ground News, comes in. For this story in particular, most of the sources reporting come from the centre. If we dig deeper into how the story is being framed, you can quickly see the contrast in how the story is being reported across the political spectrum. Some sources on the left emphasise the major arms deals at the NATO summit, while right-leaning sources shift their attention to Trump's disappointment at NATO allies. We're only able to get this level of deep analysis and transparency in reporting because of Ground News, who we've been partnered with since 2023. Their incredible website and app collects thousands of articles, putting them all in one easy-to-access place to help expose outlets' political bias, how reliable their reporting practices are, and who owns them, with all of their information backed by ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organisations. By now, you know how much we appreciate Ground News, and how we're such massive fans of all their features, but especially their blind spot feed. If you're not familiar though, this is where you can discover everything that's being disproportionately reported by one side or the other, whether it's a mile from your house or on the other side of the world. And that just scratches the surface of what Ground News has to offer. They're completely subscriber funded, so there's no corporate influence deciding what you see, and we partnered with them to get you the same 40% off unlimited access Vantage plan that we use. Get that by clicking the link in the description. Go to ground.news/TLDR or scan the QR code on screen, and you'll be supporting an independent news platform working to make the media landscape more transparent.